Hi and hola. Welcome back to another episode of Ecocharla with EcoMadres. I am so excited and honored to be talking today with Ana Flores. So, Ana and I met years ago at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, where I worked for a period, but I knew Ana way before then because she has been a pioneer in the marketplace of all things that empower Latinas, empower Latino families, and has just been like an OG in this space. And I just feel so blessed that you're giving us some time to talk a little bit about where you are in your journey right now, and then also, to have this full circle moment of knowing that you were also involved in some of the early phases of Mom's Clean Air Force. So, as a reminder to everybody who's watching, I'm Isabel González Whitaker. I'm the Associate Vice President of Mom's Clean Air Force and Director of EcoMadres, and I'm here today with Ana Flores, the founder of Spanglish Baby, I remember, and the CEO and founder of We All Grow Latina, which is one of the premier, I guess, original communities of Latinas that you brought together through digital and through web, and really pioneered this idea of giving back through experiences to empower and to uplift. Can you talk at first a little bit about your background, and then tell us a little bit about where you are right now?
Yeah, I'm right now I'm happy, grateful, and excited to be having this conversation and to kind of have this full circle moment of being back with the Clean Air Force familia and Ecomadres familia. I was born in Houston, Texas. My parents are from El Salvador, and they divorced when I was 6. And I always say that thankfully my mom moved back to El Salvador and took my sister and myself. So I grew up, my upbringing wasn't in Salvador, but completely bilingual and bicultural because by then I spoke both languages. And my dad still lives in Houston. I still have family and sisters there, and I would visit him every year. So it's just very integral and important to the story of who I am and what has motivated me my whole life because I really did grow up being Salvadoreña, gringa Salvadoreña. Like I was Salvadoreña, and then every time I would come to Houston, I would experience as an early age what it was to be a Latina in that space. And my dad was actually an entrepreneur, both my parents, and my dad had the first Latino nightclub in Houston, Texas. So we've been doing this thing of like uplifting the culture in different ways. It's in my blood.
I was going to say it's so generational. I love it. I love it. Well, can you tell me a little bit about what, what was that initial connection to Mom's Clean Air Force that drew you to want to contribute your voice? I mean, you are you you are in and of it yourself an incredible voice for the community, but you also represent thousands and thousands of Latino voices. So what was it about our mission that you said, this is going to resonate with me personally, but also with the community that I represent?
Yeah, so reflecting back in that moment, because that was almost 10, 11 years ago, and who I was at that moment, I was a new mom trying to figure out how to raise a child with no family and no really village in Los Angeles. My ex-husband, my husband at the time, and I were new. We're new at living in Los Angeles. We had moved from Mexico. I had launched this business out of necessity, but it became my passion, which was this blog that I was advocating for in the sense of people didn't believe that a blog could really do anything back then. It was like, I get cute, you're a mom blogger, you're leaving your career, a 15-year successful career in the Hispanic media industry to go do a blog and be a stay-at-home
Mhm.
mom. Like, what are you going to do with that? So I was still coming into myself and understanding, building my confidence in myself forth in this vision that I had of being able to reach audiences into something that I knew mattered, and audiences that weren't being served, especially Latino, Hispanic parents that wanted to raise bilingual, bicultural kids. So when Moms Can Air Force approached me and really pitched me, as at the moment I was one of the most prominent Latina mom blogger voices. And at that time, we have to picture that mom bloggers were the influencers. Right? We were the ones that really created what now looks like, what now is this multi-billion-dollar industry of influencer marketing. We were at the forefront. So when I was invited, I was like, wait, but I'm not an advocate. This is
Mm.
not what I do. Like, I don't know about climate justice. I don't know. I've never seen myself in that light. Yet I understood, and what I think is so beautiful about about what you do with EcoMadres is that it's important to bring it down to the women like me that don't feel that we have a voice, that don't feel that our actions matter. What matters is to have that acknowledgement and to have that awareness. And if it's even just one person that you're going to impact with your own awareness, then you are already impacting and you are an advocate, and it is important and your voice matters. And I was just learning about the power of my voice. So it really helped me, one, understand that it was important for me to have a cause that I believed in. And this was a cause that I clearly believed in. And the more that I would do research, because I was like, okay, if I'm going, it was basically writing articles and blog posts specifically about the issues of climate justice and obviously clean air and et cetera, and how it impacts directly our communities as Latinos, Latinas, especially as parents. So the more I would do the research, I was like, I could not believe it. I could not believe everything that I didn't know. I could not believe everything that was being gatekept from our communities and how little information we actually needed to be awakened and to be set into action of what we can do, and how the little things that we do really matter.
Just so honored that Mom's Clean Air Force played a role in your like journey of advocacy. And yeah, and I think that, I mean, it's similar to my journey too, right? Like like you, I was like, a writer, a journalist, and didn't realize that we all have this power within us to affect change. And just because we're not, I don't know, trained as politicians or what have you, that doesn't mean that we can't participate in civic engagement. So I'm just really touched that you're giving us a little bit of credit for your journey toward helping really make lives practically better and healthier for our community, which to your point is completely disproportionately impacted by air pollution and toxic chemicals and climate change. I often think about, there's like some statistic which is crazy, which is that 50% of our population, our community, lives in the 3 states that are most vulnerable for climate change, which California, Texas, and Florida, I'm pretty sure. Not to mention, where is climate change not touching people's lives? So this brings me to what was that experience in terms of opening your eyes? You mentioned a little bit about how you saw the disproportionate impact climate change and pollution is having and was having on the Latino community. But did it make you more sensitive to what's happening and what was happening in your everyday life too? And maybe you can talk about how that ties into this recent move that you've made.
Absolutely, 100%. I think one of the articles that I wrote that impacted me the most, and I would do my own research and see what it is that I wanted to talk about. And it had to be something, everything that I've always written has been through storytelling, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm not the expert, but this is how I'm living it. And one of those was the impact, and I'm not going to remember the data right now, but the impact of living close to freeways.
Very bad. Yes,
It's
very
very
dangerous.
bad, and I
Mhm.
lived in LA, and understanding the impact of those microparticles, of, the asphalt, everything, how it's moving, and then starting just being awakened and knowing, just I would start driving even around and being like, all these apartment next to all these freeways, all these schools, most of our public schools are next to some type of
Mhm.
major highway or freeway in Los Angeles. I was like,
Mhm.
these are the schools that my daughter was in school next to the railroad tracks. And just understanding she's spending most of her time in school breathing this air. What is this actually doing to her? So it's almost like this Pandora box that you awaken to one fact, and then another one comes in, and then another one, and it can feel overwhelming because of how disempowered we feel in the way that our lifestyles are already set. Okay, so
Mhm.
I didn't own my house, but I was like, I can't just move. I can't just move her from a school right now. And what about the places where I work? And what about, and and all is, and I know, and I still see every major city and how we continue growing in that way. Mind you, all of the other impacts that everything else that this impacts, and the infrastructure of the way that we live, and the loss of just trees and nature all around us, and how disconnected we start becoming from Mother Nature. That was really difficult for me. But I think that set me on a road of, again, that every time you awaken to more. There's just ripple effects to that. That led me to, many other things, but to this yearning of knowing that eventually I did want to move away from the cities. Before this, when I had lived in Mexico City, which was even more impacted pollution wise.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I moved from Mexico City to the beach in Mexico, in Playa del Carmen, was because I was bleeding out of my nose every single day. Both of the
That's cool.
altitude, but more than anything, the impact from the pollution. And I
Wow.
wrote about that as well, right? Like how that my body manifested it physically. And I had to make a choice. This is really what I want. I love Mexico City. I would love to live there again. But honestly, it is not the best for us. Um,
Mhm.
I live in the mountains now. My daughter and I moved to a beautiful mountain village 2 hours away from Los Angeles, depending on where you live in LA, 2 to 3 hours. But it's a beautiful mountain village that I really was in a path that I needed to slow down after 13 years of building a business. I needed a change in pace. And I knew that as much as I could do the inner work and the boundary setting and all of that within, while I still lived in LA, I was not going to be able to really achieve the level of connection to nature and to earth that I felt the calling to have. The beauty is that my daughter felt it too.
Wow.
And it has impacted us at every level moving out here.
That's amazing. Well, that's a good segue to talk a little bit about mental health in the Latino community, and mental health and its tie to the natural world. I- Do you find that in addition to some physical sort of release that you have in terms of where you're living now and the health that it's providing you, the mental benefits of it, is it manifesting with your daughter at all? And can you talk a little bit about what it is? Once you said it so well, it's like you open up this Pandora's box and you start to learn about, what we're living with daily, and frankly, sometimes the inherent dangers of the things that we're exposed to and living with that can be so dangerous. And that is climate anxiety, which is a real thing. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we find that people are really hungry for trying to figure out how to navigate this topic. And I find that that's even harder for our community, where, at least in my case, we grew up um, where there was a stigma around seeking professional care around your mental issues or anxieties, um, or even calling it anxiety, right? So can you share a little bit about your journey around whether it's climate anxiety and mental health, or one or the other, how that has played and manifested, and what you've seen in our community over the last decades that you've worked so closely with us?
It's so important. I want to reflect on this now that you're saying the words climate anxiety. I had really not honed in on them. And how important is it to, in this sense, label things to give them meaning, to give them life, and to give them presence, so that we can really see how something like that impacts our life. And I can see how anxiety completely related to climate, especially for what our children are receiving right now and are inheriting and are witnessing at a different level that we ever had to do. I grew up in nature. I grew up in El Salvador. I grew up during a civil war in El Salvador in the 80s, in the 70s, and the 80s, in a privileged society, but yet completely impacted. I mean, I had a gun pointed to my head when I was 7. Um, so, it's a different type of life. But I realize now that the access that I had to, that we still have in El Salvador, to these beautiful mountains, to the volcanoes, to being constantly surrounded by nature, to going to the lake, to the beach, to, it's like it's that cleansing that we need. And that it's the opposite of the anxiety that being in nature and climate gives to you. It's the connection. And I feel a lot of what is happening. I have a 16-year-old girl, a teenager. Her being raised in Los Angeles was really difficult for me in many things. One, it all the benefits was that it offered her opportunity and access to her dreams. She wants to be an actor, and she's known that since she was 6. On the other side, I always felt guilty that I wasn't giving her the access and opportunity to nature and to a slow life and to family that I was given. And I think in our communities, even if first generation, second generation, or the generation of immigrants at the border across them, we have that sense of family, of slowing down, even though we're hard workers, even though we believe that we get things through hard work, which I want to dismantle that belief. But we're still there. We believe that we get things through hard work, and we're going to do the hard work, but yet we value the slowing down, the siesta, that are things that are traditionally part rich of the sobremesa, the long dinner, the not rushing the slow life. We're losing that. And we're losing that because we're accepting the assimilation into the I need to work hard to achieve my dreams. I need to hustle. I need to keep myself busy. And I need to survive in this ecosystem of the cities that are calling us in. So, yeah.
Wow. That's really powerful. And just to even anchor our cultural heritage in sort of that slow life, um, ethos, it didn't even occur to me because you're right. Like so much of my growing up, it was just, well, survival, right? And honoring the sacrifices of the generation before. And and you're right, like the hustle that was like an endless hustle. Um, so I love, and also I appreciate so much like that you're calling out the rootedness of all of that in sort of like the natural environment that I think is so incredibly important in the Latino experience, right? Especially in our homeland countries. What do you think? And I love knowing that your daughter seemed to be open to this move, even though it was taking her away from, sort of that aspirational cosmopolitan life that I think a lot of us inherently, at least as a first generation American, are drawn to it because that's where we think success has to live.
Mhm.
Um, so you're showing her like a brand new world. Tell me a little bit about what you hope she learns from this experience, but beyond that, what you hope your legacy is for her.
Oh, beautiful. I've already seen what she's learned. It's been less than a year. It's been 9 months, and her anxiety is gone. She was always with a lot of fear of the things that could happen to her. And again, she's experienced probably 3 or 4 lockdowns. She was at a private school, lockdown there. She was at public schools, lockdown there. I mean, the reality that her children are growing with, we're not even equipped as parents to support them with because we did not experience that. So we can witness it and we can support them as best as we can, but we don't know really how it's affecting them. So being away from the city reduced so much anxiety for her. And being constantly surrounded in this town, she is in a school that the campus is all surrounded by nature, by creeks, by bunnies, by they see even like little like deers, whatever. All this time, just a reminder of the connectedness of nature, of being constantly surrounding and and then that space where there is always the constant reminder of you are more than just this body. Your body is nurtured by the external as well. And the external in this case are these beautiful pine trees, this beautiful life bursting around us, the change of the seasons. And the legacy that I want to leave for her is that she is incredibly powerful in deciding what she wants her life to look like, how she can manifest a life around her, and how she can always pursue her dreams. There is always a way to to change what feels like the limiting surroundings and manifestations around you, to change them, to make them fit what is always going to feel good for you. I am all about making it feel good, not the external, what you were saying, the validation of what we think is success, what society has told us, what I have already pursued. And I have learned that that's not what brings me joy. And my barometer, and that's what I want her barometer to always be, is how does she feel? What brings her joy?
It's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And what a beautiful legacy you are giving her by also modeling, right? The courage to change courses. And I also loved what you said about, that we didn't grow up with the anxiety around, for example, lockdowns. And so we're experiencing it sort of simultaneously with our children, because I'm also having to deal with that with my son. But we're also experiencing climate anxiety concurrent with our children too, because I don't think that, at least, of a certain generation, it wasn't something that was as palpable as it is today. So we're all sort of like stumbling through it and trying to, I think, I admire that you're modeling action and grace also. One of the things that we always ask, and we're almost at time, and it's sort of one of our taglines, because we fight for justice in every breath. When you hear justice in every breath, what does that mean to you?
Ooh, the word justice is powerful. Justice in every breath. Let me bring that one in. First word that came was possibilities, because I like for all us to always imagine that there's limitless possibilities accessible to us, and that if we just take it breath by breath, moment by moment, we we can always imagine and believe that that's true.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And everybody deserves to breathe clean air, right?
Everybody deserves
So,
to breathe clean air.
whether you live in the city and, to your point, can't move, right? Because that happens too. Or if you're in more embedded in the natural environment, to have the possibility of clean air for everybody so that they can reach their full potential is really at the core of what we do. But also at the core of what we do is trying to get people to uplift their voice, to empower their communities, especially around these issues of fighting for clean air, and a more stable climate. And part of that, of course, is mental well-being. So we asked you to pick a petition, which is an act of civic engagement. Just takes a signature. It's super easy to do and has so much power. And you picked the one that was about asking Congress to support resolutions to improve young people's access to mental health resource and climate education in schools. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for putting children front and center of your actions, and your wishes for our organization and for the work that you do. So to those who are watching, the next screen is going to have a QR code that will take you to the petition. Super easy, just one click and it's done. And then look at our other petitions and see if there are things that you want to do. Anything you want to leave us with, Anna, before we close out?
Well, as you were saying this, what was coming to me around this petition is that our children are inheriting our problems, are inheriting the problems that our generation and the generations before us created. So the least we could do is support them in with the tools and the partnership and the friendship and the encouragement for what they are inheriting and what they will need to lead with next.
I love that. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Ecocharla with EcoMadres.
Thank you.